Hi, and welcome to this live reading from States of Grace, Grace Locke Mystery Series Book 1 by Mandy Miller, and this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1, August 2009, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Innocence isn't all it's cracked up to be. A truly innocent client, one who didn't do it, that's the rare, unfortunate soul that will keep you up nights and hijack your brain like a catchy song. And if Lady Luck forsakes him, that's the client who will haunt you forever. Innocence is funny that way. Seems like a good thing on the surface, but at its core, it's a burden. I don't have to worry about innocence today, or almost any other day for that matter. Defendants are in the habit of being guilty of something, even if it's not what they're charged with. At least, that's what I used to say. Winning's important, but thankfully I'm going home a loser today for sure, and right now, that's all I want. To go home, assuming you can call the Hurricane Hotel a home. The jury will be back and soon to announce the inevitable. We find the defendant guilty. How do I know he's guilty? Because my client, the accused, the one slumped down in the chair to my right, his bony frame swamped by the funeral director's suit I bought him for him at Goodwill. He did it, no questions asked. Told me so himself. Said he beat the crap out of his girlfriend because she smoked his last crack rock. Said the only thing she had the sense not to do was call the cops, at least until some do-gooder counselor convinced her to file a report. But lucky for him, by that time the bruises were gone. She had it coming, and that bitch counselor at the shelter will get it too if I ever see her again, was what he told me in the holding cell this morning. Then, for good measure, as what I can only assume he saw as added incentive for me to do my job, he added, "Grace, you get me out of this hole, and I'll show you what a real man can do for your bad attitude." Willing my face to be as devoid of emotion as his hollow eyes, I told him he wouldn't have to trouble himself with my happiness, or lack thereof, because the moment the jury heard his story, the well-worn yarn about girlfriend falling in bathtub, the outcome was as predictable as another steamy day in Florida. And that's how it went, his lies echoing off the courtroom walls like prayers from a non-believer who's found his way into a church in a last-ditch effort to save himself. For some ungodly reason, and in spite of my client's stomach-turning lack of remorse, I'm still a believer. Not in innocence, maybe not even in fairness anymore, but in the system. Making sure his rights are protected is my duty, and I intend to fulfill it even if he is an unrepentant wife-beater. I learned the hard way that everyone deserves a defense and the right to look your accuser in the eye and question his version of the truth. "Sit up straight," I say, poking him in the ribs as the jury files back into the courtroom, his response to which is to lean his head, bald and shiny like a cue ball, atop elbows resting on the defense table as if his neck can't support its weight. I poke him again, harder this time. Jurors deserve respect. Most folks dodge jury duty like a well-thrown punch. Things aren't looking good for our side, however, and the jaw-grinding grimace on my client's face tells me he knows it too. The jury was only out for 53 minutes. Hardly enough time for me to guzzle a cup of putrid cafeteria coffee and pick up my court-appointed counsel's check, a pittance for my trouble. I count off each member of the six-pack as they enter, 2 men and 4 women. Even if every single eye weren't cast down, I'd still know that what they decided back in the windowless jury room, sustained by stale bagels and the desire to get home by dinner time. It's all in the sound. A quick shuffle of feet like a foxtrot, not guilty. A dragging sound like a slow waltz performed by a drunk, guilty. And what I'm hearing is 1 hairstylist, 1 teacher, a mail carrier, 2 unemployed realtors, and a retired fisherman waltzing. "I understand you have a verdict, Madam Foreperson," Judge Grant says, peering over his half-rimmed tortoiseshell glasses at a world-weary 40-something woman. I knew she'd be the foreperson from the jump. With her slit-eyed scowl, she'd scare the others into submission quickly so she could get home to reality TV to escape her own. "Yes, Your Honor." During jury selection, she said she was a hairstylist at a salon in Pompano Beach, and she delivered her answers during voir dire with a certitude of one desirous of being seen as a good citizen, the type we can trust with momentous decisions like whether or not to lock someone up. Yet her bird's nest of fried blonde hair and too short skirt revealing a tattoo of a thorny rose belie another truth, also known as a lie. She's no hairstylist. If I have a superpower, it's the ability to spot a lie, from clients' excuses for their bad choices to cops' flimsy explanations for how an accused developed a raging shiner after the cuffs went on. I've even become good at telling myself a few lies, such as the one about how I can keep defending the types I used to lock up. What is true is that I'll keep doing this work, defending the guilty. I have no choice. I need to be gainfully employed throughout my probationary period. It's either serve as court-appointed counsel or forfeit my law license again when I go back in front of the Florida Bar Disciplinary Committee a few months from now. What else can I do? Lawyering is all I've ever done, as if you don't count my stint in the Army as a military police officer, which, come to think of it, paid better than defending criminals who can't afford a real lawyer. But that misadventure cost me a limb. Besides, it's not like I'm in any kind of position to attract the upper echelon of criminals at this point. It's the bottom feeders for me for now, until I figure out a plan, a way out of this dead-end gig. My client's pitiful victim is seated in the first row of the gallery, tiny like a malnourished bird, all sharp edges and jumpy. I wonder if he sensed she'd be an easy mark. Wife-beaters tell me that. They can smell which ones will put up a fight and which will bend to their will again and again, grateful to have something to rely on. Madam Foreperson steps down from the jury box and hands the verdict form to the judge's clerk. On the way back to her seat, she glances in my direction and shrugs. I sigh in relief. She was his one hope. A woman who'd taken more than a few hard knocks and gotten up. But then hope is not a substitute for an actual defense. Truth is, it's an advantage knowing they're guilty. It simplifies things. It means I don't have to worry about screwing up. Prosecutors need to win over all 6 jurors. No room for error. All I need is to make one gullible soul believe in reasonable doubt. I find it an unnerving thought. Even so, there are no prosecutors with losing records. Proof that accused and guilty are as good as synonymous. Although odds are I put away the rare innocent back when I was Assistant State's Attorney, Grace Kelly Locke, back when I considered that possibility a cost of doing the business of justice. Another unnerving thought. Judge Grant scans the verdict form, stone-faced, and returns it to the clerk between thumb and forefinger like a smelly sock. The defendant shall rise. I get to my feet, but stay more than an arm's length away from my client. I notice I'm holding my breath, but why? Habit? Or maybe it's the haunting clank of the shackles as the accused stands. Will it be guilty or not guilty? Actual innocence being out of the question. In my mind, there's no suspense. The clerk holds the verdict form like a town crier and clears his throat before pronouncing, "We, the jury in the above entitled action, find the defendant not guilty." "Hot damn, yes!" my client yells, his fists pummeling the air as if he's hitting a heavy bag. A refrigerator lands on my chest and I struggle to catch my breath. I pivot to the jury box. Maybe they filled in the form wrong. Maybe the clerk read it wrong. But not one of them flinches, every one of their faces marked with the satisfaction of one whose work is done. Judge Grant stands, arms wide in benediction, face expressionless in keeping with the black robe. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, thank you for your service. You are hereby excused." Before exiting through a door behind the bench, he stabs a finger at my client and says, "Sir, once you are booked out of the county jail, you are free to go. Good luck to you." "Sir, who's he calling sir? This guy's not a sir." "Thank you," my now acquitted client mumbles. Before a sheriff's deputy leads him away, he faces his victim and winks. A chill slithers down my spine. A feeling that my mother, Faith, would attribute to someone walking across your grave, an odd analogy given she's still alive and kicking butt at bridge twice a week at the Palm Beach Country Club, and pruning her beloved rose bushes herself despite a gaggle of gardeners at her beck and call. I flop back into my chair, bile rising in my throat. An older woman I assumed to be the victim's mother ushers her sobbing daughter from the courtroom, an arm shielding the desperate waif from behind, as if anything other than the eradication of my client from the face of the earth could do anything to protect her now. My adversary, a baby-faced assistant state's attorney, approaches, features twisted in confusion. Aren't you supposed to be happy with your win? He asks, eyebrows hunched over clear eyes, eyes that will grow dark when he understands bearing witness to human suffering is his chosen profession. I plaster on a smile. I wish I could blame him, tell him he didn't do his job, that it's his fault a guilty man's walking free, but I can't. He did what he had to do. We both did. It's just that I, apparently, did it better. Without a doubt, the most unnerving thought I've had today. Have a good night, he says, shambling off, dragging a wheelie file cart identical to the one I used to pull back when I believed getting justice and winning were the same thing. My phone vibrates, skittering across the table like a roach on the run. A text from Mandy. Our Starbucks, 9 a.m. tomorrow. Don't be late. There is no more hour, I mutter, sweeping a stack of files into my tattered briefcase, a gift from my parents for my law school graduation. I double-check to make sure I'm alone, then retake my position in front of the empty jury box. Ladies and gentlemen, you would have no way of knowing this, but less than a year ago, I would have been physiologically unable to convince you of anything other than the guilt of the man that sat beside me today. But now, I avert my gaze to a bronze statue of blindfolded Lady Justice behind the bench. But now, please forgive me. I had no idea I'd be good at this.